episode 10 of Free Media, Free Minds with me, your host Chelsea Noah Ogilvy. So our identities are made up of everything that we have seen and heard over time. But what does this mean for a youth that is growing up on the internet? Yes, we have more representation than ever before, but we also have more fake news and photoshopping than ever before. So tonight we put the me in social media. And joining us for this discussion is Alu Azege from Love Matters, as well as Felicity Sibindi from Love Matters as well. And because we are speaking about social media, we have to speak to some influencers. So we have joined with some influencers from Zambia, and as well as some influencers from South Africa, who will be telling us whether or not the internet is a safe place to grow up. And also have a look at some successful Tinder stories. So joining us for this conversation now is Alu Azege from Love Matters. Let's hear what she has to say.
Some of the most commonly used social media platforms in Africa have been Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and a few younger people have used Snapchat, especially here in Nigeria. Young people are consuming content that benefits them. They want content that just makes them happy. They want content that makes them while away time, not necessarily very highly educative, but they want pleasure. They just want pleasure. So any serious thing you want to pass across to young people, let it be pleasurable. Young people use mobile devices a lot. They use mobile devices. From our own research, over 85% of young people have used mobile devices. Over 85% of young people use mobile devices while on the internet. Young people are online in a day at least between an average of 15 to 18 hours, and that's the fact. We've done some research, we followed people, and we found out that, at least 10 hours, some 12, some 15, some 18, so those are number of hours in a day. Now, we have found different things at different times for the period young people are online. Now, it depends on your content. If it's content they want to just view alone, you find that late in the night they are viewing it. If it's content they want to share, a few times they are doing it in the broad daylight time. And yeah, they're alone. Young people consume this content all alone. Positively, social media has exposed the young African to the global practices, to the global world, So they say the world is now a village, and yeah, they're happy to just find themselves where everything is happening on the international scene. That's just one of the few pluses. The information comes to them easily. They are able to have their say. They see that, they can reach out to anyone they want at any time. And negatively, being online has become very addictive. Young people are being online and consuming content that is not necessarily beneficial. I want to just find it pleasurable. And what I've also found out is a lot of English writing has gone away. A lot of young people do no longer write as they should write, as we were taught to write from back in the day. A lot of shorthand is happening right now. Even when they're doing it officially, they don't realize, and they're still using the shorthand for that. The internet as it is now is not a safe place to grow. And I usually don't subscribe to very young people, early teenagers being on the internet, because it's not guarded. They need to be sure of what they want before they get on the internet. So it's not safe right now. And content for young people and children must be made available on the internet before we consider it safe enough for consuming. Young people can't limit how can young people use the internet in a healthier way? Young people can limit their usage of the internet to only certain periods, to only certain sites, and to only inspirational and educational and motivational content. That way it can be used healthier. Yeah.
That was Alu Azege joining us from Love Matters, talking to us about youth and identity making in the age of social media. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be hearing from Felicity Sibindi. Welcome back from the ad break. So in a little bit, we'll have a conversation with Felicity Sibindi from Love Matters as well. All of this right about now. All right, fantastic. We are speaking to Felicity Sibindi joining us From Felicity, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Hilversum. I'm in the Netherlands. I am probably 30 minutes away from Amsterdam.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. All right, so thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We're going to be discussing youth and identity making in the age of social media. So I think
Yay.
before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, can you just let us know a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, so I'm the regional manager Africa for RNW Media. We're a media NGO. We're based in the Netherlands, but we work worldwide. I manage African countries, Anglophone African countries, so that's Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, where we have a reproductive and health rights program that focuses on sharing information with young people. We have a pleasure positive approach, and we try to engage young people as much as possible in terms of linking them to decision makers, linking them to services. So yeah, that's what I do.
All right, awesome. So like I said in the intro, we are going to be discussing youth and identity making in this incredible age of social media. But I think it makes sense to first ask, how do we as human beings, young and old, construct our identities?
Oh, wow, that's such a huge, broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so many influences that bring up about our identity. There's societal influences, there's our parents, where we grew up. I think as African young people, our school institutions and our religious institutions play a big role.
Yeah.
Because there's that whole framework, the civilizing framework, for instance, of the colonial body that is really common across Africa, where you had to be well educated, you had to be a Christian. And I think that's a huge factor in where we are today. It influences our public school systems, it influences the way we interact with morality, what's allowed, what's not. Ideas of what's proper, are dreadlocks proper, are tattoos proper.
Yeah.
So we're really moralized. So it's a combination of education, family background, economic background as well.
I guess it's essentially a collection of everything that we've been exposed to over time, and kind of just choosing what really sits with you and saying, okay, that's what I'm going to adopt into my identity. I think it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. That yes, we do choose some of it, but also some of it is kind of indoctrinated into us, which we'll get into a little bit. But when we are speaking identity, so how does the way that young people, the way that they relate to social media, how does that contribute towards their beliefs and their values?
Yeah, the social media space is so exciting, and I think people underestimate the power of social media. This is the first time that young people have access to information across the world instantly all the time. So suddenly you're exposed to what young people in Egypt are thinking about, suddenly you're exposed to conversations happening in Brazil. These are conversations that weren't possible before. When I grew up, I didn't have a cell phone. So my identity, my conversations, everything was structured around my immediate environment. So what was cool amongst my peers, my friends who were in my city, who went to my school. Whereas now I can have a connection with someone in China and have things in common with them. And so the trends, the way trends work, the way they change, the things that tell us what's cool and what's not cool is now influenced at a global scale. So you've got also then the influence of fashion brands, for example, big corporations. I think that is suddenly much more important to young people now than it was before. When I was isolated without a smartphone, without social media, without Instagram, I didn't know that the Jordan 5s, I'm not a sneaker person, I didn't know they were out yet, right? So there was no need for me to go and get them. Whereas now there's sort of a pressing need to, okay, I need the freshest thing that's out there to be considered cool. And so there's more pressure, I would say. And then everyone is also sort of becoming one big body. I feel like the youth identity now is more homogenous than it was maybe 20 years ago. So whereas before you could develop a sort of homegrown culture in your own corner of Zimbabwe, which is where I'm from, right now you're competing with people in America all the time. And you might have even more things in common than some guy in New York than you do with your neighbor. So I think that's really, I think social media is important, but it definitely adds some pressure.
All right, so I think if we're going to speak identity and social media, we must speak about representation. And I think we have more representation than ever before. So why is representation so important, first of all?
Oh, to know what you can do. I feel like to have the imagination of what you can accomplish in life, it really helps to have someone who's done it before who looks like you. A lot of us grew up, well, I'm in my 30s. So when I was young, seeing a young Black woman with short curly hair in a movie as a romantic interest was completely unheard of. Now you see the rise of stars like Lupita Nyong'o, and young girls are growing up with someone who identifies who they look like, who they can identify with. And that gives them a certain sense of confidence. That also plays into their own value identification. So if you're a love interest in a movie and you have a Black woman there, okay, so I'm an attractive young Black woman. When I was growing up, all the love interests in movies were blonde-haired, blue-eyed white women. And that genuinely has an impact in terms of self-perception, in terms of how you stand in the crowd. So I think there's definitely a positive shift. The more faces you have, the more moments of identification, moments of commonality between people, that brings confidence. And that's not just movies and love interests, but also academic excellence, sport achievements, that it really widens our scope of what we can imagine for ourselves.
I think representation is fantastic. And we have more of it, like I said, we have more of it than ever before, but we also have more fake news and we have more photoshopping than ever before at the same time, and the other side of the coin. And in this sphere, young people are expected to build their identities, you know, with a screen in their hand. So as we begin to conclude, Felicity, can we say that the internet is therefore a good place? Is it a bad place to grow up? Is there a gray in between, perhaps?
I'm on the gray in between part. I think the rise of the internet has given access to information to people who might not have had that access. And I really believe access to information is power. So having more young people being able to share ideas is super important. You see that in how governments are shutting down social media platforms like WhatsApp, for instance, at election periods. So that shows that the politicians at least recognize the power and importance of social media and the ability to communicate and network at a mass level. At the same time, with things like fake news, you get the same level of information dissemination of something that's wrong. And you see that with the growth of the right wing in America, for example. You see that with fake stories on Ebola in Central Africa, for example. So there's a dangerous element to it. And I think young people need to be vigilant in terms of the information they consume online. And I think it would be wrong to completely exclude things like bullying. Bullying online is a growing trend. And being accessible 24 hours a day online definitely creates a risk for young people. However, at the same time, I believe that our youth today are more internet savvy, are more social media savvy, and they're able to identify fake news quicker than older generations like myself. And they're also able to identify what's good and what's bad. I genuinely think the moral compass of our youth is actually quite fine. And I think social media is going to develop into a tool for change in the future. Definitely. It's a good thing.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Just before I leave you, can you just speak a little bit on how you see social media in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years from now? How do you see it, first of all, as a platform? And then how do you see that platform acting out in real life between young people and, I guess, older people as well?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. I think the first thing is the cost of the internet. That's a huge conversation when it comes to social media. So what's accessible? What's the cheapest platform available? You see the popularity of WhatsApp as compared to Facebook, for example. WhatsApp is mobile friendly. It's affordable. It's available in all countries. There's, how can I say, less restriction and less government interference on platforms like WhatsApp, unless if they shut down the whole country. So I think definitely the space for social mobilizing. and the space for debate. Right now, people are interacting with social media at a personal level. So it's me and my friends and the people I'm interested in who I'm communicating with on social media. However, I believe the growth of social movements, the political aspect of social media, and I think that's an important part in bringing young people into those frameworks, which are traditionally left for older people, boring generations. I feel young people will have more of a voice through the power of social media. They'll be able to influence policymakers because the information that's available there is on the ground, it's ready, it's not biased. I think many of our institutions right now are either biased because of economics or politics or religion, whereas social media is the open space where everyone can interact from a genuine level. So I think in the future, you'll see the growth of more movements and a drop in the prices.
Awesome, yeah. Awesome, I hope so. It sounds fantastic, and I hope that's at least partially how things will work out. But thank you so much, Felicity, for chatting to us this evening. We'll hopefully catch you again, probably next season, as we are wrapping up this season of Free Media, Free Minds. So thank you so much, and we'll chat again.
Thanks.
Alrighty, cool, bye.
Cheers.
That was Felicity Sibindi talking to us about youth and identity making in the age of social media. In a little bit, we'll take a break to pay the bills, and when we come back, we'll speak to Zambian blogger Sandy Chimpala. Welcome back from the ad break. In a little bit, we'll be speaking to Sandy Chimpala, who is a Zambian blogger. Let's see what she has to say. So, welcome to the show, first and foremost.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's get straight into it. First and foremost, the youth is growing up on the internet. So when, in your opinion, do you believe is the right time to be giving our kids cell phones and free internet access?
Okay, so I've always gone by what Facebook has decided as the legal age to, well, not legal, but like their preferred age for someone to have a Facebook account, which in my opinion would be the start of social media and probably the first access for a child to social media and the internet, which is 13. But then again, there's a lot of people who say their kids like grow smarter than before they actually reach that age. So I guess it's different from parent to parent. I guess they can assess their own children, but I would say 13.
Okay, so if we're saying 13, do you think we should be looking into our 13-year-olds' Facebook or Instagram, or do you think we should just give them like free reign, free access, go do what you need to do, I trust you?
No, definitely not. Like, you can't just leave them with the account. You should know they have it. You should probably have access to it as well. We can only trust them when they reach like over 18, I think, because that's the age we think people make better decisions about their life.
Okay, cool. So then with that being said, what can we say are the advantages and the disadvantages of the youth growing up on the internet?
Well, definitely more resources, more information, better content than what's being shared right now on radio and TV and other sources of information. So I feel like social media and the internet have more diverse content, which could be to their advantage. The disadvantage, though, is that some of the content is not appropriate for kids, and if you're not monitoring them, they might be prone to either just finding very, very highly inappropriate content that the social media providers or internet providers have not yet flagged down, but the kids still have access to it because it doesn't need approval from like an older person or a guardian. So that's the scary part, because they can stumble upon either the dark web, or even just inappropriate content. Because even just my own feed usually has like some things that I don't even know how they get onto my feed. So yeah, I think that's the biggest disadvantage.
Okay, so how then would you say the internet and social media impacts the development of young people socially and emotionally and internally?
Okay, on a positive note, I feel like it grows their social circles in terms of keeping in touch with their friends who might not necessarily be in the same space as them. So they can keep in touch with friends, relatives, and all that. But I've also seen that the internet and social media can be a negative tool when it comes to things like cyberbullying, emotional harassment, or even just because you're seeing other people living a life that you can't live, so you feel like your self-worth is lowered because you're seeing all this great stuff on the internet that you're not currently going through. So I feel like the development can be good if it's positive content, but can also be negative when they allow themselves to be absorbed by the levels of life being shared on the social media platforms that they can't like attain.
All right, so young people are using social media as a means of self-expression, like you said. And I think it's also a great place for young people to see the expression of others. So is social media therefore not like a great place for representation of all sorts?
Yeah, definitely. So now we're living in a time where a lot of people have to express themselves, either sexuality, their content, their preferences of anything really. And social media allows for them to join or be part of either online campaigns or online teams, online groups, meet other people who are like them. So I feel like before we didn't have anywhere to go if we wanted to express ourselves in a certain way. But now it's like just join a hashtag because it's expressing everything that you are, and you're able to meet millions of people like you. So I feel like in that sense, yeah, it is a great place to actually meet people who are like you, who are expressing themselves in the same way that previously you did in private, but now can publicly do.
I think that's fantastic because I think that social media is also now more than ever giving young people voices that they didn't have before. But then at the same time, Sandy, we look at events like the Fire Party, which was an event completely marketed on Instagram, but never fruited to what it was advertised to be. So I think we can confidently say at the same time that social media is not real life. So how does this impact the thinking of real people in real life?
So a lot of the content, like I thought Fire Festival was an example of, I don't know if you can call it fake news, but definitely, yeah, it was definitely one of those things that it's an example of having something online that everybody wants to be a part of, and then finding out that it's not exactly what they think it is. So, and that is a negative advantage of social media. But the fact is, nobody shows the bad side of things on social media. Nobody shows, even like in our personal profiles, you will never see negative images from a personal profile or from a business account or like an event like the Fire Festival did. So the negative side of things is that, unfortunately, the reality of certain things we do see on social media are not as they seem in the pictures that are there. So you can't really tell nowadays what's real and what's not. But it'd be nice to be cautious about everything. I think everything you see online, just be a little cautious about what it's actually telling you. Try and find out more, get reviews from more people. Obviously, the Fire Festival was the first time, so there was no reviews from prior events. But especially for something that's new, I think try and get as much information as you can about it.
Okay, so considering that social media is so full of fake news and overly produced content and photoshopped photographs and just like a whole bunch of lies, honestly, how do we raise a generation on that?
Well, I think it's important to, first of all, try and teach from your own personal experiences of fake news, like the kind of sites, the tools that are there to assess what's real and what's not. So you pass them on to children before they start accessing the internet. I know some social media sites actually have a lot of disclaimers before and a lot of tutorials before you actually sign up, because they're trying to get you to see better content that's real and obviously legit. So it would be nice to have maybe even offline classes. So starting from schools and teaching them about how to determine what's real and what's not, especially when it's coming from what seems to be big organizations promoting something. So you obviously have, trust, because the name looks like it's a legit brand. But I think digital rights and digital access lessons have to be taught from a very young age, so people can be able to tell from us, from kids to adults, can be able to tell that this is real and this is not. But I think it needs to start from a young age. We don't just need to give them the tools and tell them go play with them unsupervised. We need to teach them how to handle the tools that we give them.
I think that's very important. I think that we can't just, like you said, I think that's fantastic. We can't just kind of leave kids to do as they please. And I like the idea of integrating that into the education system, especially moving into the fourth industrial revolution. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does.
All right, so lastly, before we wrap up, Sandy, we are a society swimming in social media, nevertheless. Considering everything that we have said, we are still a society swimming in social media, and we have most of our youth on Instagram and most of our mature audience on Facebook. So how has this changed the at-home, family, social dynamic?
So, well, there are two platforms owned by the same people, but with very different audiences, like you said. So with Instagram, I feel like it's a lot more showy. Facebook is like, oh, this is my family, this is my friends, we're having lunch. And then Instagram is like, look at how great I'm living, I'm an influencer. So it's two very different dynamics. And now it's like, I think Instagram is kind of giving rise to the whole showy lifestyle, and that's where you see fake lives mostly, actually. Well, if you know them personally, you know it's fake. If you don't know them, you will really think that's their real life. Facebook has still remained the hub of mature people, and only because I feel like it's been the easiest social media platform to access for a lot of people. It's usually the first one. Most parents, my parents, are not willing to try out another app like Instagram. They just don't want to do it. So even if you have the same content on both platforms like Instagram and Facebook, you will find that Facebook will have your dad liking the photo. So you're kind of limited with what you can do on that platform. So I think young people are more free to express themselves on Instagram than they can on Facebook, because it's their peers on there and brands willing to work with them, and they can show their belly on there, but they can't do that because dad's watching on Facebook. So I feel like, it feels like Facebook is like your house, and then Instagram is like, I'm out with my friends.
Okay. Yeah. That's a really cool way to put it. Absolutely. Last question. How can young people use the internet and social media in the most productive way? What is the best way to use the internet?
Okay, depending on what you're doing, at what level of life you're at, whether you're in high school, if you're in college, if you're working as a young person, I feel like use the internet to connect to people who are like you. Like, think of your future and what you want to do and what that looks like. Then find people who've either done it or who are doing it. Try and get mentors to link with you. So mentors don't necessarily have to be people who are right next to you or who you can meet physically. There's always virtual people. There's always people on the internet that you can talk to, who can guide you about stuff that you want to do. If you're a young person who's working or trying to move ahead in your career, try and find all these free online opportunities, online courses. I think those really help in trying to develop you as a person. And most people pull back from trying to engage in those because they're like, if it's on the internet and I go and present it to an employer, they will think it's from the internet, so it doesn't matter. No, in this day and age, a lot of people are now accepting, and I think they accept the fact, they're grateful for the fact that you actually took time out to try and do something further than what you're already doing to develop yourself, to develop your skills. And that puts you way ahead of like other youths and peers who are at the same level as you. If you're in high school, if you're in primary school, use that to get additional information about what you're studying. And also keep in mind that some schools might not necessarily have all the resources to cater for all the children. Because, for example, if it's a government school, it's probably overcrowded, they share books, but maybe an internet bundle is cheaper than you trying to wait on your friend to finish using the book. So why not use it to try and get maybe the free version of the book if it exists, or maybe other online resources that give the same information as the book that you're waiting on. So I think youth should use the internet to further themselves, to develop themselves, to train themselves, even try and find opportunities that could, eventually make them some money, because hey, aren't we all trying to just make money?
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Sandy. On that note, we will say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for chatting to us. You have just been such a treat to speak to.
Thank you.
All right, until later. So we'll hopefully be joining Sandy again later on in the season. But thank you so much for joining us. Cool. Bye. That was the stunning Sandy Chimpala talking to us all the way from Zambia about her blogging experiences. We're going to take a quick break. Welcome back from the ad break. So right about now we are going to speak to some influencers, and we have asked them one question. Is the internet a safe place to grow up? Let's hear what they say.
In today's world, if you have kids, chances are they have been on the internet. We all know the immense dangers that the internet holds. By definition, it democratizes information, which, if you willingly put in the consequences and information on unprepared kids, it can be very extremely dangerous. Because kids are so young and they are easily prone to deception and can be fooled easily, oftentimes they are taken advantage of people online who try to get kids to disclose personal information about themselves. And these information could include their name, their age, or location, which all plays a role in the safety of the kids, which is now put at risk. The internet can be bad for kids' mental health, as kids that spend a lot of time on the internet and have their faces glued to screens are often develop depression, anxiety, or have social issues in the future. And a large contribution to this is cyberbullying, because normal bullying is not easier, but there are solutions to it, as a teacher could easily intervene and help the kid out. Whereas cyberbullying, and how it emphasizes the depression and anxiety, and why kids are more prone to it now these days, is because teachers can't intervene and help the kids if it's happening over the internet. And secondly, you get sexual predators. The internet, it has become a open access road to kids talking to virtual strangers, where a sexual predator could easily target a kid with the ill intentions or negative intentions, putting the kids at risk. And then finally, you get pornography, which is one of the most easiest and accessible things that a kid could access online, which makes why the internet is so dangerous for kids. Boom.
So right about now we are going to hear from some successful Tinder couples on how their relationship came about. Let's hear what they have to say.
One day I decided to randomly search dating apps. I then came across an app called Badoo. I installed the app and then I created a profile for myself. I then added a few pictures of myself, and then I went to people nearby. I scrolled and continued scrolling. But I then decided to log out. I came back, that was an hour after I've logged out, and I continued scrolling. I then left again 15 minutes after I received a few messages. I then went through those messages, but I never found any of those messages and profiles interesting and that were a match. Then I logged out. The following day, I then received a few more messages. That was 3 to 4. And out of those 3 to 4, there were one of them that were a like. And then I clicked on the like. I viewed the person's profile. Then I liked what I was busy reading. Then I sent him a like back, and then he replied with hi. And then I replied back to him, hi, how are you doing? My name is Junaid. Pleased to meet you. And then it's like, likewise, my name is Apiwe. Then we started chatting, and the chats continued and things got heated. We asked each other things about each other, and what do you like doing, what's your favorite food, your favorite artist, etc. Then we continued, and then we decided to meet up. And the first time we met, I was a bit shy, and he too was a bit shy, but we then soon got rid of all of that, because then we met our second and third and fourth time, and then it continued, and till now we have been together, and it's now 8 months, and that is my social media love story. And I can honestly say that, I had a low self-esteem, and I never had confidence in myself, but through this app I found confidence, because I then saw and I then realized how easy it is, and how easy it was for me to then meet somebody online, not necessarily socializing by going out and meeting people, because I don't like doing that. But that was how I met the person that I feel I want to spend the rest of my life with. Yeah.
Now that we've heard some successful Tinder stories, we are going to get into our community notice board for this week. Let's check it out. And that right there does bring our show to an end. Thank you for choosing me to free your mind with. I am Chelsea Noah Ogilvy. And thank you to my guests, Alu Azeye from Love Matters, as well as Felicity Subindi from Love Matters as well. And thank you to our influencers for answering whether the internet is a safe place to grow up or not. So with that being said, we will continue this conversation on our social media networks at freemedia.freeminds on Instagram or Free Media Free Minds on Facebook. With all of that being said, my name is Chelsea Noah Ogilvy. Keep it real, and if it's unreal, keep it anyway.